At the end of the day, we don't belong anywhere, but we belong everywhere.
What was going through your mind when you said?
Some of your audience might not know, but I was actually adopted at the age of 14. Lost my parents within a very short time. They actually had AIDS underlying. Coming to Australia, I realized that I didn't fit in.
What does belonging to somewhere really mean to you?
Actually, belonging is a need. It's not something that I want. It's a human need to call something or someone to home.
I mean, when we were kids, you heard people adopt kids because they couldn't have children. But your story is entirely new to me.
What made it really unique for my story particularly is being adopted at older age. And 4 of us, that's not very common for Australia.
But was there a point where you felt like they might have doubted the decision of taking the 4 of you?
Offered a way back.
They offered their way back.
If I wanted to go back, they've offered that. I think my parents are Christians, so they've always believed that this is what God wanted them to do.
Help me make sense of what it means not to grow up with your biological parents.
It will forever be a scar that I will carry. But what makes it so unique, losing parents at a young age, is every security blanket that you had is stripped away from you. So the people that are supposed to protect you and love you and be there and nurture you, give you wisdom, they no longer exist, especially in the situation that I was in.
How did you manage to get to this point? There are moments in life that shapes us long before we understand them. For some, it is a loss, and for others, it is the journey that begins with a goodbye. My guest today, Meseret, knows what it means to live between 2 worlds. Born in Ethiopia, orphaned at a very young age, and adopted into a life in Australia, her story isn't just about adoption. It's about identity, it's about belonging, and the courage to heal when the pieces of your past doesn't seem to fit anywhere. She's an accredited life coach, a public speaker, and an adoption specialist, helping others find meaning in their own stories. Behind the titles and achievements lies a powerful truth that hope can grow from heartbreak, and home isn't always a place. Sometimes it is something we build from within ourselves. This is Becoming a CEO, and today we'll be talking about what it really means to find where you belong. Welcome, Meseret, to Becoming a CEO podcast. Hello, Meseret.
Hello, Manu.
How are you today?
I am well. How are you doing?
I'm all right. It's always an honor talking to you. Welcome to Becoming the CEO podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
How's your day, pretty much? How has it been so far? Since the day you got married, let's put it, because I'm not sure we've met after you got married.
I know, my life just started. We actually got married the 1st of February.
This year?
This year.
Feels like last year, actually.
It feels like it's been forever, but yeah, it's been amazing. It's just such a new journey, and yeah, it comes with changes, but I'm embracing it and enjoying it all together. So
Please do your thing.
some people say I'm glowing, so
You are actually glowing. Honestly, you are actually glowing. And it's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, or Yosef. He's
Yosef.
here anyway.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Look, Meseret, let's get straight into it. For someone that hasn't met you before,
Yeah.
never knew you, never heard about your story, what would you like them to know about you?
That's a very good question. I would like them to know, I guess, a bit about my heritage. I'm originally from Ethiopia. That's a very big part of who I am. I spent the first 14 years of my life in Ethiopia. I would like them to know, I guess, the journey that got me to here in Australia at the age of 14. What else would I say? I think I'd like them to know my hobbies, things that I enjoy, and parts of who I am and how I became here.
Thank you. If I were to ask Joy, David, or perhaps Joseph, what is the one thing they would say Meseret struggles with the most?
I think they would say compassion.
Compassion.
Yeah, compassion would be.
Compassion?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
So wherever, I think, did you say the one thing that
Yeah.
people will identify
In what way?
me? I guess the idea that I'm able to have a lot of empathy and be able to be in people's shoes and come from a place of compassion wherever I am, whether that's with my family, with my friends, or at work. So I know that because of the journey that I've had myself, that I always think somebody has come from somewhere, they have a story. So I try to be, approaching people, situations with compassion.
Essentially, your experience has taught you to be compassionate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. I'll show you a quote. Now, this is your quote, and I'll read that for me.
This is a very familiar quote. At the end of the day, we don't belong anywhere, but we belong everywhere.
What was going through your mind when you said?
When I said that, came up with it. I think, as I mentioned, belonging has been such a huge part of my journey, finding out where I belong. Some of your audience might not know, but I was actually adopted at the age of 14. Went to an orphanage around 9, lost my parents within a very short time, at the age of 9 as well. So coming to Australia, went straight to a country town, Dunsborough, Busselton, the southwest of WA. I guess I stood out a lot, so I realised that I didn't fit in. So I was searching for belonging, physical belonging, as well as places where my ideas, my experiences were, identified. So when I realised that, and then I came to Perth at the age of 18, looking for my people that are from Ethiopia or African heritage or similar stories I am, I also realised that in those spaces it wasn't quite the same as how I envisioned it. So for me, I realised later on in late 20s that belonging is something that you create, actually, and it's people don't feel like they belong in one specific, especially if you've been taken out of countries or you've had experiences, but also it is somewhere that enables you to be everywhere as well, because you know what it means not to belong. You learn to make home everywhere you go. So it's just this idea of the wrestling is something that I guess wanted to highlight in that quote, is that we do have an awesome opportunity that we can, wherever we go, we can make friends, we can identify and be home, but also you can't completely belong in one group
What
of
does
people.
belonging, sorry to cut you, what does belonging to somewhere really mean to you?
To me,
Yeah.
belonging, I guess, having people that have similar experiences, perhaps looking similar, like Ethiopian or African background, and you just wonder. It's a need, actually. Belonging is a need, a human need. That later I learned it's not something that I want. It's actually so everyone is looking for it. So for me, it's a human need to call something or someone to a home.
I'll go straight into, some of your stories. So I've had the opportunity I was at the premiere of your film.
Yeah.
And I've had to go, obviously, watch it again and did some of my research, about you.
Yeah.
But I'll ask you the question anyway. Now, you grew up in Ethiopia and you were adopted at the age of 14.
Yeah.
You just said. If you could paint a picture of that moment for us, what would that look like? Can you paint like a vivid picture of the moment you were adopted? What can you remember?
Yeah. Just to I guess correct it, is I was adopted at 13 and a half in Ethiopia. So I remember that particular day. I've got 3 siblings, so I've got 2 sisters and a brother. So my brother and I were basically, before that, just to track back, my parents were around the orphanage that we were in. So they were, I knew that they were going to be my family probably a couple of weeks prior.
And when you say your parents, your adopted parents?
Adopted parents now, yeah. So they were volunteering in Ethiopia prior to that for about 12 months. So we've seen them around. We got pulled in a few weeks prior and we got told, these are going to be your parents. It's going to pretty much conclude very soon. So on the day that we were adopted and taken out of the orphanage, my brother and I, because we were over 11, we actually attend court in Ethiopia to basically say that we accept them as our parents. I remember being scared, probably is the word, because I didn't know who they were. I had no idea, to be honest, of my rights and what I was saying yes to. The other parties were also told to say yes. So it was like, yeah, it's going to be an awesome new life. There was an excitement underneath, but there was also a lot of fear because I'm like, oh, like, where are we going to go? Who are these people? Yeah, just, I guess, the unknown future. But also at the same time, that was the prayers and the desperation and something that I prayed for was happening. So conflicting.
What led to that moment of you being adopted?
Losing my parents at the age of 9. I was saying it was quite close. My family, extended family, were unable to provide for us, so they were relinquished us into an orphanage, which we spent about 4.5 years.
What was your relationship like with your parents? Did you know them?
In the orphanage, they tried to build a relationship with us. They weren't allowed to tell us until they were 100% sure that they were going to be our parents. So a lot of the time, there was just strangers volunteering at the orphanage. So, and because I was a teenager, I didn't really want to hang around them. I actually have photos where they were, making an effort and coming to watch soccer with me and trying to be a little bit more like on the down low, get to know the potential kids. So they were just volunteers up until they told us. For me, I was too cool to be hanging out with them.
No. What about for your biological parents, put it that way? Did you have a relationship with them?
Yes, yeah.
What was that like?
My biological families were very close-knit. So my father worked away a lot. He was a priest and a merchant, so he often worked in the capital city. But my mom was stay-at-home mom. So I honestly, I thought I had it all. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I was loved. We were very close around extended family. As far as I knew, my parents loved us and did whatever they could to give us a bright future. So, and, being in Ethiopia, like being the oldest as well, we were learning things from my mom, like cooking and cleaning and, helping out with the younger siblings. So, I would say it was just a
Do you have a
family.
particular relationship with dad? Biological?
Dad?
Yeah.
I did. I would say he was my hero. I idolized him a lot. Like I mentioned, he doesn't come home a lot, but on holidays he used to come and just over the moon whenever he's there. But obviously he's absent. There's no telephones or social media back then. But he was just somebody that I just idolized. And when he came there, it was like the best thing ever. And I know that he was very driven. He was very much wanted education. And I knew that about him. And he had plans for our lives. And he wanted to take us to, the capital city and build a better, bright future for us. So he made that known to myself and siblings. So, yeah, in a way it's a bit strange because it's like, yes, I have a relationship with him, but it was impacted by, physical presence. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll use myself for an example. I grew up with my biological parents up until I became an adult. Of course, left home, came to Australia. Fortunately, my dad died, last year. Losing him, obviously, felt like I lost something very significant. Not like felt like I actually lost something, a significant part of my life. But for your own self, help me make sense of what it means not to grow up with your biological parents.
I would say it will forever be a scar that I will carry. As you mentioned, like even when you're old, it doesn't matter what age you lose your parents are your parents. But what makes it so unique losing parents at a young age is every security blanket that you had is stripped away from you. So the people that are supposed to protect you and love you and be there and nurture you, give you wisdom, they no longer exist, especially in the situation that I was in. It was a couple of months, if not a month and a half apart. And they, my dad actually went back to the town and never saw him. I only found out later that he passed away a month and a half after. So I would, yeah, I think it's the hardest thing, and it's the most, I always say it's the first heartbreak for me, because I felt like I had the world, I felt like I had everything, even though in the material sense I didn't have that much. So for people to understand, I think, is to imagine being a child and everything that you believe in is stripped away, and now you're confronted with the reality of life. Like, hopelessness, you're kind of looking at, go, okay, what does life look like for me on my own? So you had to learn to grow up really quickly, because that's what it does. So, and when connection with your parents, loved ones, that's removed, whether it's a good connection, bad connection, still a connection with your family, it breaks something in you where you can no longer see people in the world in the same way.
What's the circumstance? What led to their death? Can you, in quick succession, walk us through, for mom, what led to her demise?
Yeah.
And for that, because I watched the documentary, I know you didn't really go deep into that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the questions I had. What led to, what circumstances around their passing?
Yeah. So my mum got, she had TB, and then my dad had malaria. My dad had malaria for a long period of time. Like, I knew he was sick, but he always got better. But they actually had AIDS underlying. So that's why it was quick.
What was the time difference between their passing?
The passing away? I had to convert it in my last trip. It was about a month and 5 days.
Apart.
But I wasn't there for my father's passing away.
Did he ever mention anything to you?
No.
Did you ever sense any of those? Health depreciating anything?
When my mom passed away, I recall, because I had to go to school and do exam the next day. But I remember praying that my dad stays and hangs on. And he went back to tell everybody, at this period of our lives, we were in the capital city. We moved up to start a new family, a new life, I guess, with school and new future. And we were all together. It was a time where my dad kind of made the big decision to all move us to Addis Ababa, and we were all going to be a family, right? Like, no more separation. So 6 months after that, my mom got suddenly sick, and literally within a month, she passed away of being sick. And then he went back to the village that we were in, and I never saw him. So, but my siblings came back a few months after, and that's when I knew something didn't quite add up, because they came without him. So I actually first heard my dad's passing away from my siblings. They were told not to tell us. My brother and I had to stay up for school in Addis. So, and the reason being, when I asked later, is to make sure we don't go crazy, because it was so close.
What was your reaction as soon as you heard he was gone? How did that
shattered. Yeah, it was like numb, shattered. Because up until that month, or even I didn't realize he passed away, but when my siblings were away with him until they joined us, I was still praying like he will be alive and that he was going to be okay. And yeah.
Have you seen the movie Lion?
I have seen it, but I have not yet, because it's so close to my story that I'm preparing myself.
How close?
It's especially the way it explores adoption. It's beautifully done. So
I'll tell you something. So I was at the premiere of the movie. I watched it.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I've been exposed to. Adoption isn't, when we were kids, you heard people adopt kids because they couldn't have children. And so it is for their own benefit. You adopt because you want it. So that's what. And so when you see someone adopts a kid that you couldn't have a kid, and so you had to adopt.
Yeah.
But your story is entirely new to me. It wasn't something that made, not like it didn't make sense, but I didn't appreciate it till I came across Lion.
So I think with adoption, it's very common that people, including my adoptive parents, they couldn't have their own children. What made it really unique for my story particularly is being adopted at older age. And 4 of us, that's not very common for Australia.
I was going to
Adoption,
come there,
yeah,
actually.
at all. Siblings, blood siblings all together, that's not very common at all. But to an extent, yes, my parents wanted to build their own family. That was part of it. The other part of it is because of, obviously, my parents, adopted parents, do have a history with our country. And that, yeah.
Lion. So I watched it twice, and each time I watched it, I cried.
Cry, yeah. Yeah.
Literally cried, because I could see a young 5-year-old just thrown into the deep, not knowing what life holds, growing up, questioning pretty much everything around him, then having to go back to find out where he's come from, and then realize brother is gone, life wasn't the same anymore, and things like that.
Yeah.
After watching that, your story made so much sense to me.
Yeah. What part was stood out for you?
Everything.
Yeah.
From when he got lost on that train,
Yeah.
trying to figure out life, like he was confused, couldn't feed, like he was literally picking food from the train, crumbs on the floor, and then getting on the other side of, India, and then became a street kid, picked up, put in an orphanage, and then being adopted. And you assume, okay, yeah, you've been adopted, and so you should be happy.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's really not the case with this young man. So getting to Australia, yeah, it was good. It was fun.
Yeah.
But it's still the question of identity. Where are you coming from? Who is your mom? Who is your dad? Yeah, it's good. We've got a black kid and a white parents. Obviously, it doesn't happen that way. And then that got him really disturbed. And I cheered pretty much all through the movie. I watched it alone. I think my wife, I watched this kind of movie, I watched for myself.
Yeah, she's like, what is he doing?
Yeah. So it made your story make a lot of sense. And I wanted to actually ask if you've watched it. It's so unfortunate you haven't watched it.
I know the movie line, the storyline.
The storyline.
Yeah, I know the
Why haven't you
storyline.
watched it?
It's too close. It's a very similar thing. It just sometimes when stories, you have to make sure you're in the right space to watch it.
Okay.
But I know it's a lot of tears. It would be. There's shows that are like about foster care and I'm weeping, so let alone. But it's because it's so similar, and I think that movie is one of the closest movies that I know that portrays, I guess, the challenges of being an intercountry or interracial and interracial adoptees in Australia and worldwide. A lot of the emotions, I guess the question is, even someone that's been adopted older, those are the things that we struggle lifelong.
Do you think those scars will ever be healed?
Hmm?
Do you think those scars will ever...
Completely healed?
Yeah.
No. I don't think it will be healed. It will be there. I think the wound, the wound will be healed, but the scars will stay. I'm at the point in life, I don't know if I would say this 5 years ago, that I'm okay with that now, because those scars kind of show you how far you've come and where you come from, and that I find can be a very grounding space. I guess that's what makes it life. Would I choose it at the start? Probably not. But am I thankful I've done something out of it now? Yes.
How did you manage to get to this point? So getting to this point is the mindset you have now. Because not many people heal from that, even though you live in quotes, bracket, a better country. But there's still a part of them that's still ungrateful or still wounded in certain ways and traumatized about pretty much everything happening around them. How do you're a counselor, right? Or a coach, how do you walk people through that process, the healing process?
I think it's different for everybody. Like every adoptee, everyone that goes through trauma, it's different level, different timing. For me personally, the moment that I recognized that it's time to stop blaming everybody and everything around and kind of started to take ownership for my life is when things start to change for me. So I guess at 18, like I said to you, I moved from Busselton and I wanted life to look differently. And I wanted to be around all of that. So then I went, okay, what do I need to do? So there was a lot of counselling and psychologists that I saw over the years, many years. So I was in that counselling room just unpacking, okay, what does this mean? How is it going to impact me? And the reason for one of my motivation to do that was I didn't want to bleed to potential families that I might have in the future. And I also always believed that there was more to life than this. So I think personal responsibility is really important. And then kind of think about, okay, what does life look like for me now I'm an adult? Because when you're young, you feel like everybody's making a decision. A lot of adoptees feel like this. Your life is somebody making a decision for you. And you ended up in this situation and you feel victimized and, helpless. Very common feelings. So, but at some point, I'm responsible for the life that I live moving forward. And would that mean a lot of hard work? Yes. A lot of tears? Yes. Is it challenging a lot of my old views and perspective? Also just coming around people. Like I have family friends that haven't given up on me. They have shown me what loving family is. What does it mean to be a friend? Like I've had friends from school that are like, even before I spoke English, they just sat by my side. I don't know why, but still I have friends like that. So when, I don't know if you know, but I'm also a Christian. I think God brings people like that around you, and you got to make a choice to, look at where you're at, whether you want to move forward or you just want to stay where it is. And I think a lot of people think, especially in countries like Australia, we don't feel like we can choose. We have a choice. We might not like it, or it might be a lot of climbing and hiking and a lot of work, but the work will be worth it because it won't be the same once you start. So that's how I came to be. I just knew I wanted life differently, and there's got to be something that I can do now to move forward and just kind of slowly, like it was bumpy. It wasn't always, but I'm grateful for the people around me that supported. I think that community is really important.
Beautiful. What was your relationship with your adopted mom after coming to Australia? I would imagine as a teenager, of course.
Yes.
Teenagers.
Yeah. My beautiful mom. I'm so glad we can talk about it now. I struggled to adjust with adoption because I was so independent. Like when you're in the orphanage, you're one of the older kids. So you already got responsibility. So when I have like new parents trying to teach me rules and new way of life, it did not. On top of that, there's a cultural, misunderstanding and language. I didn't speak English very well. So we clashed a lot. In fact, I actually got kicked out of home as well. And just because, and partly because there was a gap. There was a huge gap between what they wanted as a family versus where I was at and how I was impacted. So it's only getting better now, I would say, as an adult, where I've done the therapy and kind of gone, hey, I'm sorry for the parts, or I need some parts where I needed her to say sorry and hear it out and kind of choose what kind of relationship we wanted. But it wasn't always good because there was a lot of misunderstanding, and I was also operating out of a place of pain, hurt, and being able to have someone close to you and then they can get taken away in a minute is a real fear that many adoptees, not only that, a lot of people that lose, they fear that abandonment will just pops up. And, at that time, I did not have the language of psychology to explain all my feelings or emotions, or I actually didn't have many other supports that were like, spaces that I can talk about it. So it was not fun. On top of being a teenager.
Out of the house. I want to pick on that. Now, what led to that?
Yeah, I haven't actually spoke that a lot about that.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, so I basically became, my mom's words were disruptive to the family units.
How old were you then?
I would have been, this was the first year that I was in Australia, 14 to 15, yeah.
Okay.
So it was just, rebelling, but also not really accepting their orders. And also I think another factor was like, I was used to looking after my siblings at a younger age. So not being taking that role away from me because now there's a mom figure, right? So now I need to be a sister. I don't know what it means to be a sister. So there was another dynamic of that as well, just navigating the place. But it didn't sound like I was easy to handle. So got removed.
So where did you go from there?
I went to a family friend my parents placed me until we kind of worked it out. So I came back 2 weeks later. It was only for 2 weeks.
Did you?
Yeah, I apologized and then kind of tried. But it wasn't, I was better after that. But in that moment, I think when I look back, I was talking to, some family and friends about this. Like, I kind of chose to kind of stay quieter after that event that happened because I guess I realized that there's not a whole lot of space for me. So I'm like, okay, if I pick up sports, if I do well at school, if I learn the language, just get busy to kind of get through life. That's how, if I was very honest with you, I got through it.
What about with Dad?
With Dad? Dad was good, yeah. He wasn't,
usually Dad's done.
Yeah, he's just like,
chill.
he was,
But was
chill.
there points where you felt like they might have doubted their decision of taking the four of you? Even though they might not have said it?
They've offered a way back.
They offered their way back.
If I wanted to go back, they've offered that. I think my parents are Christians, so they've always believed that this is what God wanted them to do. So I don't think they ever, doubted that. Did they feel equipped to do the job? No. So that's probably where the skill gap wasn't there, and the support, especially at that time for intercountry adoption or those spaces, wasn't available. So they could have done with more support and skill because they were first-time parents. I don't know, you were a parent, I know. Just imagine having 4 kids from the age of 7, 9, 11, and 14 all at once, and then learning to parent. And then on top of that, there's a lot of history of trauma and things like that. It's pretty chaotic. So they worked it out, stumbled, but I don't know.
What about for your siblings? How did they cope? I mean, you're the older one.
Yes.
The teenager.
Yeah.
Was it easier on them with the younger ones?
Easy in a different way. I think they adapted a lot more. I think one of the challenges that I found is I already know what I had an experience with my biological parents, so, and a way of life, and I have such a vivid memory of that. Whereas for my younger siblings, they spent more time in the orphanage. My youngest one, she was 2 when my parents passed away, so it was really easy for her to accept mom as mom and dad as dad really quickly because she doesn't have those pictures or expectations and things like that. So I would say it was easy at the start, but the challenges later came up differently because they don't have a lot of memories. So
what kind of challenge?
Challenges of, remembering biological mum and dad, memories of our early life, connecting with biological extended family. You know, it's like I'm Ethiopian, but I no longer speak the language. It's just a reverse.
Thank you. So what was the hardest part about trying to connect with mom? I think you've talked about that.
Mum, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was saying is this, there's unrecognized trauma of a feeling like it's going to be abandoned. There's definitely like I knew my biological mom has spent a lot of time, so also making sure and like feeling like I don't want to replace her. So there was this two, I guess, competing things where I wanted to accept her as my mom, but then I also didn't want to replace my biological mum and the place and the love that I had for her. But also the other part is I was a strong personality and yeah,
Strong-headed.
strong-headed, and so she is. So yeah,
It is
that
what
was
it
the
is.
things, yeah.
You did mention in the short film that you had several questions for mom, biological now, before she passed. So picture her sitting right in front of you. What would those questions be?
It's a very good question. You got me on that one. I think one of the questions would be, I guess, is this how she saw life? Like I wanted to ask her, like, is this how she saw her life and her family life play out? I wanted to know if she knew how unwell my father was. Yeah. There's a few other ones, like, I guess I wanted to ask her if she'd had to choose to miss out on something, what would she miss out on? Yeah. Because I always knew she loved us. I never really asked that, but I also would have wanted her to hang around more. If she had a choice, would she hang around more?
You know, I had a chat with my wife that I'm having you on this podcast. All right, she hasn't met you, but she's watched, obviously. And I shared with her this story I've just shared with you, the Lion Netflix movie. She's seen it, but we didn't watch it together.
Yeah.
And all of other stuff. And then she said something, but good to have, which I'm going to do,
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
and Joy on set.
Yeah, that would be good.
And you ask her 6 questions, which I will give you.
That would be good.
And I think I also have her here. Now, I'm hearing from you now, of course, the emotions and all of other stuff. But I can also picture her as well, being on the receiving end. And she did what she believed was the right thing, and she was led by God to do it. But then I would certainly believe that at some point they questioned that decision, if it was actually the right decision. Bringing a teenager into the house and to become disruptive according to you.
Disruptive.
You know?
Yeah.
I could imagine what was playing behind the scene between himself and Dave.
Yeah.
And questioning whose
Who signed this
decision was
paper?
who did this. You
Yeah.
understand? Of course, I can imagine it wouldn't have been an easy one. But then having to work through all of this
Yeah.
and then better off on the other side.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your take on this, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that
That
much
would be
later.
awesome.
That would be
I think
awesome,
she'll
actually.
enjoy that. Yeah.
You know? Now, you once said you felt torn between 2 worlds, Ethiopia and Australia. Can you describe what that conflict was like
The conflict?
inside?
Inside. Yeah, I like that question. Inside. I think, so in Ethiopia, life is different. It's very community-based. Relationships are quite important. Family, friends, it's connection-based. That's what I've experienced anyways, and that's what I go off. And the food Food is different. Just the aspect of the belief, the spiritual, the values were different. So I guess here life is a lot more like fend for yourself, right? A little bit more individual. And I feel at times connections are optional for many people. So at times I felt like that. So even though we all need it, we all don't really prioritize it. So a lot of it, obviously, as an Ethiopian woman, I'm black, I've got very curly hairs, practically speaking. Just everything outside I look, inside the belief system and the values and just what I knew has basically been taken off. And then coming here trying to, how would I describe it? It's more like you've got a piece of paper with writing on it, and then it's like that's got a way of life, and then you've got another piece of paper with a different way of life, and you're trying to merge them and make them one, or kind of shuffle, trying to fit a puzzle of it. So that's how I felt, is when I feel like, what does it mean to be Ethiopian in a mainly Caucasian Surfy town? When I'm with an Ethiopian family and friends, they're like, what does it mean to be an Australian Ethiopian with, I don't remember the elders' names, so, I speak up a lot more, and I was meant to be quiet or address someone with the family name. Like, there were times where I'll be at a community event and people will ask me which family I belong to, because in our culture, that's how you identified with the family air. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you won't know them. And just feeling like, a little bit like, they won't know that. So does that mean that, am I missing some part of it? So seems part of it's small, the other part of it is significant, like values and customs. So you're questioning yourself everywhere you go. when I'm in Ethiopian community, I definitely stood out.
In what way?
Especially when I re-entered initially, I didn't speak the language, Amharic. And it's like, why don't you speak the language? Like, the questions were, and there was a lot of,
Did you speak it when you were back?
So what happened was, when I came from Ethiopia, I was fluent. And then in Bustleton, because I hadn't used it for 4 years, it was somewhere, but completely gone. So when I, at 18, went back to Ethiopia, started to connect with the community, no way to be seen. So there was a lot of like, you came here old, like, why are you speaking? So a lot of it was being questioned. Like, why would you do that? Why would you, and people, in our community don't know what adoption, the impact it has, and how complicated it is, even asking those questions of like, it's like I had a choice to lose my language,
Did you feel like an outcast when you went back?
Yes, yeah. The way that I talked, the way that I looked, even, the individual rights and some of the stuff that I picked up here was different. Like, I went back and asking my uncle, be like, I am an adult now. Tell me the gaps. And he's kind of looking at you like, you okay? Let's talk about it another time. It's like, and, you're demanding, I have the rights to know all my story in details, whether it's good or bad. A lot. And then you're there crying, and then they're like, why are you crying? You're good now. And it's like, I haven't seen you for 10 years. So it's like, even crying can be a good therapeutical thing, but back home it's like, you can't cry. Like, you're okay now. Like, don't cry. And I'm like, but I'm happy to see you. And I've got so much emotion that I've held from the separation and the times that I've passed, not doing life together. So, yeah, definitely either or. Both worlds, there's a difference. And at times it felt like you can't escape it until you accept it.
Were there moments where you felt like, look, I don't want to do this anymore, let me just go back?
Yes. Yep. I was. Yes, I was. The first year was one of them. It's like, this is not what I signed up for. I don't know anybody. Everything is new. School is new. Friends are new. Family's new. It's like stripping everything that you know and then telling someone to go and function normally. I felt like, all the safety was taken away.
Why did you go?
My siblings, they weren't going to come with me. So, I didn't want to be separated.
Is there like a going back for an adoptee like yourself and for your mom, the new mom and new dad? Is there like a going back if it doesn't work? Or is there any such thing that it doesn't work?
No.
Does it have to work?
It has to work. No, because they have the legal rights for me.
Over you now?
Yeah,
Custody?
as 4 of us now. So unless I'm 18 and then I become under their care, can't really be revoked. So if I was to go back, they would still be my parents. I would just be, they would be paying somebody to look after.
They can stop from going essentially if they want to.
Yeah, because they have complete rights. Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It's the weird thing about adoption is it's not the weird thing, but something that people forget when you get adopted is you're basically leaving your biological family. So they're no longer related to you legally. So it's a funny thing because you're like, you feel weird because you do have blood family, but they're not legally related to you. Because that is taken away, that's revoked. So it's mixed, really. It's sad, and it's actually quite sad when you think about it, that, if an uncle is no longer your uncle legally, who you've spent your childhood with. But in saying that, you also gain a new one. That's the end part. It's not always one or the other. Yeah. Adoption is based on loss.
Do you think you found peace?
More peace, yeah. Contentment more, I would say. Yeah. A lot more than when I was younger.
How has this affected your relationship with people? I'll paint a picture, okay? So, relationship, when I say relationship, not people generally, friendship, and how you interact with people, especially as an adult, and how is you coming from where you've come from, knowing the things you've been through, you experienced the trauma, how did that impact your ability to build lasting relationship with friends of opposite sex, of course, same sex as well, and things like that?
Yeah. For myself.
And builds trust as well, which is the most important thing,
It is, for myself, to give you an idea, and adoptees, actually most people, the relationships are the hardest thing to work on. Like, we thrive well in careers and other things, but that connection point, like I was saying, because it's broken, for whatever reason, leaving birth family, being abandoned, or death, that stains in how you see relationship moving forward. So for me, connection became, although it was something that I desperately wanted and craved it was also dangerous. So I kept people at our arm's length. So I had a lot of people around me because I'm social, bubbly and all of that. But when it came to being vulnerable and actually when it came down to that trust part, I did not give it to anybody because, I was afraid that they would probably leave or I leave before they leave me as a coping mechanism. So a lot of my 20s has been just facing the reality where, you have a lot of friends, you spread yourself out so that you don't need to have a few rooted ones. I'm grateful for the people that haven't left me, even though that I was doing this like a yo-yo thing where it's like up and down. But it was really challenging, both friendships and, and like romantically, I made sure that I was going after people that I were, predictable and that I knew and that, emotionally unavailable, because that's the dynamic and the blueprint that I was used to.
Was that why, I know you're married now. Of course, I knew Joe.
Yeah.
Was that why you guys didn't
It
continue?
didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know about relationship patterns.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so I think I was attachment styles. Are you familiar with those?
No.
The anxious, avoidant. So there's basically this is a theory. There's 4 different styles of how people attach to others,
Yeah.
usually learnt over time. So I guess with that relationship particularly, it ended because one, where we see life was different. So I guess for me it was like I wanted a partner that was there, present physically, more family orientated, and not as much with career, I guess. And I wasn't really part of that. And the other part is the emotional health was really important to me. So being able to have somebody that can, when you have challenges, sit down, have a conversation over it, and deal with it. Whereas when you have some attachments, they tend to avoid it. They shut down, you don't know, they become unpredictable, and so on. So I quickly, actually, I'm grateful for that relationship because I realized that I played a big part in that, because the people that I tend to go for are people that can actually meet my needs, like more emotional needs. So it took me a while to get there, and grateful for the person, the memories, but there's some personalities that are just, they're not the same. That you might have shared values like being driven, all of that stuff, but there was other important values to me, like being emotionally healthy and building a family that is being physically present. So, yeah, I learned to take responsibility after that relationship, because I always thought, oh, people left or I leave them. Usually I leave them before they leave me. But what I didn't realize is the dynamics that I was getting into, and anxious, emotionally anxious, and I was getting with avoidant, kind of, which are not healthy. So I was able to, work on that and have a bit of time for myself before I actually go, no, this is the partner, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to be well, so that I can find somebody that is healthy and well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
It did answer my question, 100%. This scenario you painted, anxious anxiety, that theory, explain that to me, like I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Educate me.
I'll do briefly, because I think there's a few explanations for it. So anxious attachment is basically, it's a type of attachment that you basically see people that are more like, they want a lot of reassurance. So emotionally.
From the partners?
From the partners and friendships. So it's like, are you there? Yes. Like, so even though they look independent and all that out there, I'm probably not explaining it very well, but they actually need to be reaffirmed more emotionally, whether it's about the achievement and so on. Avoidance, I'll just point out the characterization more. The avoidants, they tend to be quite high achiever, but they struggle to hold like confronting conversations. They tend to run away more, either physically or they shut down really quickly. And they normally attract each other because the anxious is running towards someone and then the avoidant is running away. So it's got like it's a very...
So the anxious runs after an avoidant person?
An avoidant, yeah.
An avoidant person is avoiding
the anxious. They don't like, so the moment they feel the avoidant, the moment they feel like they're quite close to somebody, they run away. They disconnect, basically.
And what's the third one?
The third one is secure. Most people are actually secure, so they're okay and they're able to have a relationship that is, I guess, like healthy. So they're able to connect, give and take. They move well around the world. I'm sure you can identify some people around you. They're just calm, collective. They can support people. They can give out love. I think apparently, according to the stats, that's 50%.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. And then the other one I think is disorganized, number 4. So disorganized is what is labeled as one of the worst ones because you're looking for connection, but you also don't want it at the same time. So I think that one is quite new to research, but you basically one day you're like, you want your friends around you, and then you're pushing them away straight away. So they just sort of kind of a yo-yo.
So which one are you in all of this? Which one did you
At some
discover
point,
that
I
you were-
discovered, I think more now I lean towards disorganized. I used to be anxious more, but you can change, by the way, over time in those attachments. Yeah.
And which of these would, so if you, for instance, are disorganized, which one of these would be your person?
What I have chose or what I have chosen now. I
So
used
not
to,
you, let's say
Yeah.
for instance, an avoidant person, who would they naturally gravitate towards?
Towards,
A disorganized person, who would they naturally gravitate
yeah.
towards?
Normally the anxious tend to gravitate towards
Avoidance?
avoidance,
Yeah.
generally speaking. Avoidance tend to go for the anxious because they need that reaffirmation. You know, somebody with anxious, sometimes they let themselves go. So they kind of make it all about the other person. So the avoidant, they tend to like it because they've got somebody that's like showering them with everything, all that kind of stuff, generally speaking. With disorganized, obviously any of these can go towards secure.
Okay.
That would be the ideal, would be able to move towards secure. So
Okay.
secure and secure is fine. I think for me, like my husband, Joseph, he's secure.
Yeah.
But I think he changed a bit. I have to check with him. But I'm moving towards, but I'm still more on the disorganized part.
Okay.
But fully recognize the impact that has. Yeah. So they kind of twine, but some are worse if they're together than others.
Beautiful.
Or
Beautiful.
unhealthy, I would say.
Thanks.
That's
Look,
all.
you work now as a coach or a private consultant.
Yeah.
How has your story shaped this work you do now
Yeah.
and helped others in navigating?
The documentary came out. It kind of ended up studying coaching and evolved and became itself. It's been a huge privilege to be able to be in these spaces, to do what I do, work with families and adoptees, because I know firsthand what the adoption journey can be. Of course, everybody's story is different, but to be able to have that lived experience, match it with professional that's been a well-rounded, asset, something that I can offer. So to be able to have both and hold them together has been something that, it's been quite helpful and useful for our community.
Thanks. Have you ever had a case where an adopted child ends up in, quote unquote, the wrong family? And how can that be resolved? So if, for whatever reason, this isn't going well, and the child cannot just walk away, how is that resolved?
So that will, there's failed adoption is the term for it. They normally end up in Department of Communities. So I haven't worked with these individuals per se, but I know a couple of cases that have ended up into failed. They basically, the parents, it's like if you to give up your rights to the department, it's a bit like that. So the adoptees, they will get given to the department, and that will mean they can either be out for adoption or they go through the foster care. Most of the time they end up through the foster care system, which is
That's really
terrible.
Sad.
Yeah, it's very terrible, yeah.
So what due diligence needs to be done to ensure that it doesn't end up as a failed adoption at the point of adopting a child?
Adoption, like especially now, there's more lived experience, more stories are coming out. I'm thankful that it's getting looked at and reshaped more. I think I would say the vetting of the families from the start is really important. The challenging part is you can't 100% avoid it because people will be able to tell you what they need to get what they want. And in situations like this, that's what happens, is that people will tell the department, or the social worker what they need to so they can have that child. And then later they find out that's not the child, or they're not really conforming into the child that they hoped they could have. So I definitely would say before there's a year before they became your own children here in adoption, it's different. Like our adoption was in country, so it was done in Ethiopia, but a lot of it is done here in Australia for international. So that year reporting could happen, but it's a lot to do with the vetting of families and the education really early.
What's the vetting process like? What does that involve?
At the moment, like each country is different. Like Ethiopia doesn't adopt anymore. That shut in 2015, I think, due to a lot of particular girl, actually. But there's some countries here that we adopt, like Taiwan. It takes quite a few years. They do a couple of like education. They have home studies where they go and look at it. They have character references and there's quite a few steps that would take some parents take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years process. Yeah.
Who benefits the most in this whole
adoption
process?
That's a hard one. That's a very good question because I personally would say my parents, but it's quite hard to say completely because I guess in other ways I also benefit.
Why do you think they benefited the most?
I think that question is quite hard to say because it's the circumstances that that shouldn't be has happened. I think for my parents per se, like to be able to have the possibility of having a family, and they can pass their names and, those things, but to have a relationship with their daughters or sons.
In your opinion, the parents benefits the most? I mean, that's your view.
I can't say 100%.
No, that's your view. It doesn't have to be correct, right or wrong. It's just your view.
Yeah, it's a catch question because as an adoptee, I wanted to, it's often the narrative is that we benefit the most. And I just don't think that's entirely true. So I think maybe I would say mutual.
Why do you think that's not true? Your view, it's okay. It doesn't have to be correct.
Yeah.
But why do you think that's a wrong notion?
Narrative?
Yeah.
In adopt. Because I think it really minimizes the experiences of adoptees and birth families, but are semi-Ethiopian, extended anyone actually. I'm grateful enough that I know both my parents passed away and that I only have extended family, cousins and aunties. There are many situations in adoption where people or adoptees have birth families. So, they have willingly or unwillingly given up their children. So in that situation, to come out as an adult and kind of, because the system is, I can go on about it for a long time, but, the system is flawed. There's children that have been taken out from their parents. The parents didn't know that it was adoption. They were relinquishing. They thought they were going to be educated and coming back. So there are so many cases in adoption that's not just because an orphan got from the orphanage. So in those situations, I don't know if many adoptees feel like it's a good question to ask individually, but I think when that narrative runs, it really minimizes our experiences of the loss.
What would life, it's been like if you were not adopted?
Another question
imagine?
I don't like. Yeah, I can imagine. I've been back in Ethiopia a few times to have an understanding as an adult what could potentially happen. The reason that I don't like that question, just a bit of a rant, is because if we're starting that there, I would prefer to start the question, imagine if my parents didn't pass away. So I feel like,
Okay,
yeah.
let's ask that
Yeah.
question. Imagine your parents didn't pass away.
Yeah.
What would life have turned into for you?
Looking at it from the outside, I wouldn't know fully, but I can give you an idea. Would probably be married early. Would have been a mum. I think I would have had education solely based on my father's endeavors. Yeah, and stayed in Ethiopia. That's what I would presume. I wouldn't know. It's a hard question to ask because you don't know until you're in it.
What would you say to someone's listening to, to this conversation, struggling with belonging or identity right now? What would you say to that person?
First of all, I would say you're not alone. It is many adoptees, but not also a lot of, with globalization, many of us are struggling with those. So knowing that you're not alone. Two, it's really important that we know that we can create those spaces ourselves. We can choose the people that make us feel like we belong or we're loved and create those spaces. So you're never, it's never happening to you. You can proactively create those spaces. With identity, it's a lifelong journey. It is not, I am on it still. The questions that you've asked me will change when I have children. It will change when I experience more life as an adult, as a parent. It'll be really interesting to have this conversation. So not to be so hard on yourself, but ground yourself, know your values as much, be in the places where you can get support. It's really important that you should never do it alone. There's a lot of support in communities. Find your tribe, surround yourself, and be on that journey lifelong. I would say don't be scared to do the hard work. It does pay off. It doesn't feel like it for a long time, but to be doing the work will pay off.
To speak to the young girl in Ethiopia before adoption, what would you say to her? That young you, 13-year-old, unsure of what life holds, what would you say to her now?
I would say you're going to be fine. You'll just be fine.
What does home mean
Home.
to you?
Home, that's a really good question. You, Emmanuel, you've had a really good question. Home. Home used to be a physical space. Now it's more the people that I care about being around it. Home to me now, let's say I call Perth home. I've got my siblings, I've got my husband, I've got, extended family, close friends and friends. So for me, it's around connection and people that I'm around. It's not necessarily a physical space.
Thanks so much, Meseret.
No problem.
It's been a pleasure having you on this on the Becoming a CEO podcast, honestly. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. That concludes our session today.
Thanks
you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It really means a lot that you're willing to engage in this conversation and create this space. It really means a lot.
Thank you.
And you're so graceful and natural about it. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story, your journey with us. I do really appreciate you. Sometimes home isn't a place. It's a feeling we spend our whole lives trying to find. Meseret's story reminds us that healing doesn't erase the past. It helps us make peace with it. And maybe that is what belonging truly is. Not fitting anywhere perfectly, but learning to stand whole wherever life places you. I hope her journey inspires you to find your own version of home, even if you have to build it from the pieces of your story. Now, until next time, I'll see you guys on our next episode. Have a wonderful day.